they just go more astray. And the consequences of that, as we saw with the lockdown and are continuing to see with the lockdown, the consequences of that are, well, we'll see how cataclysmic they are. I thought, for example, that part of the reason we're in a war with Russia is probably, perhaps, and maybe this is only 10% of the problem or less, world leaders weren't getting together and talking because of the lockdowns. It's like, I don't know how often the president of the United States and the leader of Russia should get together and talk, but never is definitely the wrong answer. And if you think you can do that electronically and do it successfully, you're naive and careless beyond, what would you call it? Beyond forgiveness, beyond the requirement for forgiveness. So,
and I think it extends not just to like great, top leaders of countries, but also just to regular interactions with people. Like a lot of the fracture of communities like just take my own example, like the friendships that have been broken. If we'd actually been meeting with the other faculty members regularly, just because we ran into them on the office building. I just find it hard to it would have been much more difficult to demonize me. If Francis Collins or Tony Fauci had just called me and spoke and said, here's what we were thinking, here's why we're concerned, let's change it, could you change it to do this way? I mean, I might have gone along to try to figure out how to accommodate their concerns. Rather than demonizing me, we would have found a better way to manage. I mean, science works by those kinds of personal communications. It's, you write papers, but then you go talk to people. Those conferences are actually worthwhile because now you get to know really with who they are, how they think.
Yeah.
It's a human endeavor.
Yeah.
Just as, and to have this ideology where you have to be a part, replace everything just by Zoom, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, the other thing that's lurking underneath all of this that we're going to have to contend with is that I think virtualization breeds mistrust. And so what I've noticed when I've conducted virtualized enterprises is that they go fine when everyone agrees, but they go very badly as soon as disagreement emerges. And I think it's because if I disagree with you, it's easy for that to produce a halo and for me to think, well, we disagree on everything. If we were getting together and having a coffee and bumping into each other in the hallway, we'd see that it's one minor disagreement in a host of agreements. But that requires personal contact. And so that's foregone in the virtual world. And then I also think that this is worse. And I don't know how dangerous a threat it is, but I think it's a paramount threat. I also think that virtualization enables psychopathy because psychopaths are actually held at bay by the perils of face-to-face communication. And if they can operate behind the scenes, which they can certainly do online, there's an immense amount of online criminal activity and exploitation. I mean, the whole pornography industry is nothing but that. And then immense, swaths of criminals operating online, and then all the troll behavior as well. We may be setting up a world in the virtual space where the psychopaths and the predators and the predatory parasites, because that's what a psychopath is, they can just run roughshod.
I mean, there's a counterbalancing. So I know people that speak anonymously where they legitimately fear their job and they wouldn't speak otherwise. So there's a temporary. So I don't know how you manage that.
I don't either.
Maybe you authorize. It's a complicated problem. But I hear you. I mean, it is one of the costs of going online, going on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
You're subject to tremendous calumny from random people.
Oh, it's unreal.
I mean, I don't know. I think that was happening before I went on Twitter though. I mean, just in the minds of some people, or the reputation destroying mechanisms of some people. It's just I view it as at least I'm in a position where I can speak and get my message out.
Yeah.
And if they're gonna sort of attack me in these vile ways, I at the very least I can have my own say. Rather than staying silent.
Yeah. No. People say things on Twitter that would instantly get them punched in real life. And so, and they do it all the time. And there are people who do that just for entertainment. And I mean, the clinical literature on that is becoming extraordinarily clear. So the particularly pathological venom spewing trolls, a small percentage of the anonymous accounts are genuine whistleblowers. Most of them are Machiavellian, psychopathic, narcissistic sadists. And that's what the clinical literature shows. And they have full sway on Twitter and disproportionate effect. And that's warping the entire political landscape. Anyways, that's grounds for another conversation. We should actually wrap this up. I guess there's lots of other things we could talk about, but we covered a fair bit of territory today. And so it's a pleasure to get to sit down and talk with you at some length. We didn't manage that at Stanford, although we got to know each other at least a trifle there. So what's next as far as you're concerned? What are you attempting to do right now? Maybe we can close with that.
Sure. So the main thing is the public health authorities make tremendous mistakes. We can just see at least mistakes during the pandemic. The public deserves a full accounting of what decisions were made, who made them, and why. There needs to be an honest COVID commission on the order of like the 9/11 commission that honestly looks at these and answers these questions. So I've been working on a document called the Norfolk Group document. You can go to norfolkgroup.org and find it with a bunch of my colleagues, where we've set an agenda. It's just questions that a honest COVID commission would ask. And so I want to help set that agenda.
Well, maybe we should do a podcast with like 2 or 3 members of that group. When you guys are far enough along to feel that would be useful, why don't we do that? And you could suggest to me who these people should be. Okay, let's do that. And so any sense about when that might be?
So the document is actually done. We've been working on it for the last 8 months. And now I want to spend time educating willing legislators and others who are going to be conducting these inquiries.
Okay.
In basically in every country, so right now the next step I think is we're going to try to get it translated into multiple languages, and try to contact commissions that are already starting to form, parliamentary inquiries or commissions that are already starting to form, so that they have these set of questions in front of them that they can ask. These are reasonable questions, like what was the basis for deciding that that children should have the vaccine?
Yeah, I'd like to know the answer to that question for sure, because I just can't figure that out
so we just lay out the evidence.
Yeah.
We just lay out the evidence. Why didn't the randomized trials for children for this vaccine have as a clinical endpoint the prevention of hospitalization or death? Why did it only have antibody production as the
there's a good one.
I mean, like things like this.
Yeah. Why weren't the trials required to produce all-cause mortality as one of the outcomes?
An excellent question, because that would have helped us understand what better to do with the vaccine.
Yes.
So I think so we have a